So there is political turmoil in Pakistan, and the things just don't seem to be getting solved right now. And this political thing is connected to the role of establishment and the role of the courts as well, which issue politicized decisions, and it is happening even right now that the establishment and the courts are taking decisions and are influencing the politics in such a way that country is in turmoil. There is a huge political crisis going on in Pakistan right now, and that is because of all of this thing that during the last 3.5 years, Imran Khan uh, was the one who was governing the country, and because of his policies, the country is in such a huge economic crisis right now that it has never been before. And then, then when he was thrown out of the government, now he has become a hero, and now he's selling conspiracy theories. Like when he was ousted through a no confidence motion, which is a purely democratic way of changing a government in a country. In all the democratic countries, this option is there on the table. And in India and in United Kingdom and all the other countries, the countries that we think are on a better democratic state in a better democratic state than Pakistan, this option has been followed all the time. But the problem is when Imran Khan was ousted in Pakistan, because there is a strong anti-American sentiment. So he started to tap into that, and he started to say that it was US which tried to who was behind that was behind the conspiracy that was going on against him, and he was ousted because of that. And in the end, what happened was that now a huge proportion of the population seriously believes in his propaganda, and when this happens, it always creates a lots of problems. And this is why he is again being successful right now. All the mess that he created, he's not taking responsibility for that, and the people of Pakistan are not holding him responsible for that. He was the one who made the agreements with International Monetary Fund, but the problem is then he backed out of those agreements, and he caused the inflation that is happening right now, because he was selling oil at a price which was you know less than the cost price, and that put a lot of strain on the economy. And in the end, what happened is, right now, when this government tried to go back into the IMF program, then at this point, uh, they had to increase all these oil prices and electricity prices and all those things that Imran Khan was holding back on. They had to increase this, all of this, and still IMF has not released the installment of the loan that they have promised to Pakistan. So Pakistan might be a bankrupt country by the next month or by the end of next month if this thing with IMF does not go through. Though the Pakistani government has been repeatedly telling that Pakistan is uh, Pakistan is going to get loan from IMF, the deal is done. But right now, today, dollar has hit 250 rupees in the open market. So this is a huge problem right now. But this was just the background. The next thing that I want to discuss right now is that Pakistan is a nuclear powered state, and there are a lot of extremist religious elements in Pakistan. Pakistan also has a history of nuclear proliferation, where Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan and many of the Pakistani military establishment were involved in nuclear proliferation, where they were selling nuclear technology to countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia and even Iraq. And there are allegations on Pakistan that they are also responsible for transfer of nuclear technology to North Korea as well. So if such kind of a nuclear country gets economically destabilized, it creates a huge problem for the region. all the countries that are in the region and internationally, it would be a huge problem. During the recent few months, we have seen that Sri Lanka is bankrupt, and this bankruptcy is not of it's basically a dollar crisis or a foreign reserve crisis in Sri Lanka, and they don't have the dollars or the foreign reserves to import oil or other energy needs and other imports. So that's why the country has become kind of bankrupt. And the similar kind of situation can be happening in Pakistan in a couple of months if Pakistan does not receive any kind of aid from IMF and World Bank and other friendly nations. So what is going to happen is going to be, I think, at least 20 times worse than Sri Lanka, because I think Sri Lanka's population is somewhere, I think, 20 million, but Pakistan's population is at least I think 250 millions right now, and it's a huge population. And Pakistan needs, I think, somewhere between 10 to 15 billion billion dollars of imports each month. And right now, Pakistan is under $10 billion, and which is, I think, enough only for 1 month of imports, provided that they have banned a lot of luxury things to be imported into the country right now. But if Pakistan becomes bankrupt, then and Pakistan, if Pakistan becomes bankrupt, then definitely Pakistan wouldn't be able to support a lot of its institutions, and especially the institution of Pakistan Army, which is responsible for the security of this country. And if provided this situation occurs, then there could be a war, and I am more worried about a war on the Western Front right now than the Eastern Front. Why? Because even today, Mufti Taqi Usmani and some of the other mullahs are in Kabul talking with Taliban, but for the last 2 months, these talks have been going on, but no one has been able to come to an agreement, because Taliban want a porous kind of border through which they can continue their drug trade and earn money. They can go across the border whenever they want, and they don't want Pakistani government to fence the border or either control the border and control inflow and outflow from the border. So it's a very long border, and the Taliban want it to be a loose kind of an open kind of border where their people can go from one side to the other side and carry anything that they want. They want smuggled goods to go from Pakistan into Afghanistan, drugs to flow from Afghanistan into Pakistan, and from there to maybe the international world. This is what they want. And they want the Pakistani Taliban to be granted more freedom in Pakistan. And a lot of Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan members have been released because of the pressure exerted by the Afghan Taliban on the Pakistani government. So if the Pakistani situation gets weaker, I think it would be a perfect opportunity for the Afghan Taliban to start an assault on the Pakistani forces on the border. Secondly, they have also shown an inclination to start a territorial dispute as well, where they have, recent video surfaced on Twitter where Taliban were, removing a Pakistani milestone and a Pakistani boundary stone as well, and they were saying this area belongs to Afghanistan rather than Pakistan. So if and Taliban have the perfect capability to start a guerrilla war in Pakistan, which can be started by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan by the support of Afghan Taliban, and that would be the worst case scenario for Pakistan, and we don't know where this can go. Secondly, the Eastern Front is also not friendly. And let's say if Pakistan becomes bankrupt and Pakistan is going through a lot of problems, India would naturally be really worried, because Pakistan is not a normal neighbor. Pakistan is a nuclear powered neighbor, which has more than enough nuclear bombs that can, devastate any country. Though India is also a nuclear power, but no one wants a nuclear war in the subcontinent. So if tensions rise on the eastern border as well, then the two-prong war would make Pakistan take some drastic or desperate decisions, and where it could go, we don't know. And what role China and US will play in all of this, that's also going to be a really, really difficult thing. So, Pakistan's military chief, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, called US yesterday, and he was asking US to help Pakistan get the IMF loan installment released. So we don't know what kind of response he has gotten from the US, and will Pakistan be getting the first installment of the loan in the next few weeks or not. And if they don't get it, then definitely this import situation is going to worsen in Pakistan, like it has already worsened in Sri Lanka and some other countries as well. So most of the countries, most of the third world countries in the world are already facing this crisis and this rise in the oil prices globally because of the Ukraine Russia war that is going on. and and we don't know for how long this war is going to continue. Maybe people are hoping that as the hard winters of Russia kick in October, maybe this war is going to come to an end, but we don't know that what is going to happen at that time, because ending the war is another thing, and starting the supply chain from Russia is another thing. And we don't know that at what footing Russia is going to end this war. Will Europe and America be able to consider the end of war a peacemaking situation with Russia or not? Because let's say the war ends, but the economic sanctions and the import sanctions and export sanctions stay on Russia, then this thing is going to continue. And we don't know for how long this is going to continue. And it is going to hurt Pakistan. Bangladesh is also on the verge of collapse as the you know, international news is coming in. A dozen countries in Africa are on the brink of all of this. Turkey is on the brink of all of this. There are many other countries that are, some of them are, third world countries. Some of them are countries like Turkey that were not doing so bad before the COVID and this kind of crisis, but now they are doing really bad. So we don't know what's going to happen. But let's say if Pakistan destabilizes in any way, then the provided the history of nuclear proliferation that was going on in Pakistan before, we don't know if a dirty bomb can hand you know end up in the hands of some wrong people. I am hopeful that the Pakistani military and would make sure that nothing like that happens, but we don't know, because as I'm saying, that that the problem that the world is going to face with Pakistan is going to be 20 times worse than what they are facing right now with Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a peaceful country. They don't have any territorial disputes with anyone. They are not a nuclear powered. It's a very small population. Though the crisis is big, it's going to be solved. Uh, you know, it's a lot less difficult than Pakistan or the countries of that size, and it's just going to be horrible if it happens. So let's hope that it doesn't happen, and things go properly, and in the end we get out of this. But still, one thing I can tell you that the political situation in Pakistan, Imran Khan and the establishment and the court has created such a situation in Pakistan that the people are not talking about this. They are not thinking about this even right now. Normal people think that the economic crisis is not the biggest problem. The bigger problems right now are if Imran Khan is in government or not. And Imran Khan is taking full advantage of this situation and full advantage of the situation that has been created, and because of which this government has to take really, really tough decisions right now. So we don't know where it's going to go. It's going to be really difficult. And just keep your fingers crossed. Let's hope that this thing with IMF goes through. But IMF and Pakistan have very deep trust issues as well, because Pakistan is a country that has received more bailouts than any other country in the world from International Monetary Fund. And each time, whatever promises they make with IMF, they always break those promises. And that is how Pakistan does it. So I don't know. And America is also not very happy with Pakistan because of the recent exit from Afghanistan. And the current US government blames Pakistan for that. And the American media blames Pakistan for all of that, what happened in Afghanistan and why America lost the war there. So Pakistan is openly blamed for that. So the Pakistan is in a deep diplomatic crisis as well, economic crisis, the domestic political crisis, the extremely deep diplomatic crisis that Imran Khan has created during the last 3.5 years. But it's not only Imran Khan's fault, but the problem is that the defeat of America in Afghanistan and their exit in such a disgraceful way, America is angry about that. And they are rightly angry about that as well, because Pakistan has made their life difficult, and Pakistan has provided safe havens to Taliban within their own borders. But the problem is, like, it's much more complicated, that what Pakistan could have done and what Pakistan couldn't have done in such a situation.